This is for the ones who feel like they've lost who they are, not because they're weak, but because the structure that once held them is gone. If you've left the military, if you're going through transition, or even if you're still serving and something internally doesn't feel right anymore, this is for you. In 2014, my career came to an end. I was medically discharged from the military, chronic pain in both legs, diagnosed with an adjustment disorder, and not long after that, I broke, not physically, mentally. I reached a point where I genuinely believed I wasn't good enough to be a mother, I wasn't good enough to be a wife, and that the people I loved most would be better off without me. So I didn't ask for help, I didn't speak, I didn't reach out, I just stayed inside, for months, housebound, living in my own head, trying to make sense of what had happened, and who I was without the military. Because what people don't tell you is this: you don't just leave a job, you leave structure, you leave identity, you leave the version of yourself that made sense. And when that disappears, you're left trying to rebuild something you don't fully understand. That's where most people get stuck. Not because they're weak, but because no one explains what's actually happening. At some point, I stopped asking, what's wrong with me? And I started asking, is this just me, or does this happen to other people too? That question changed everything, because it led me into psychology, into behavior, into identity, into understanding how people actually change, and why so many don't, not from a place of theory, from a place of survival. And slowly, things started to shift, not overnight, but enough to move forward. And one of the biggest turning points was when I stopped focusing purely on myself and started helping others. I began delivering workshops for those leaving the armed forces. I was invited back onto camp. I delivered resettlement briefs across 42 Northwest Brigade, and without fully realizing it at the time, that was the beginning of rebuilding who I was. Over the next 12 years, I worked with startup businesses, supported local council initiatives, built my own businesses, but I made a mistake. I chased success. I chased money. I thought if I built enough externally, everything internally would fix itself. It didn't, because no matter what I achieved, something still felt off. And this is the part that matters. You can have opportunity, you can have capability, you can even have external success, but if your identity isn't stable, your behavior won't be consistent, and your results won't hold. That's when everything clicked. This wasn't about motivation, it wasn't about discipline, it was about identity. Who you believe you are drives how you think, which drives how you act, which drives what you build, and if that identity is fractured, everything that follows will be too. That understanding is what led me to develop identity performance psychology, and from that, the AURIS framework: awareness, understanding, regulation, identity, stability, not as theory, but as something lived, tested, and rebuilt. Alongside that, I started writing, because I needed to make sense of it, and I wanted to help others do the same. I've self-published my books on Amazon as part of a 4-part memoir series, including Soldier Girl and The Transition, where I go into the reality of this journey in far more detail, because I don't want people sitting where I once sat, thinking they're the only one. And now, I know exactly who I am. I'm Gemma Gardner. I am proud to be a mother. I am proud to be a wife. And I am proud of the woman I've become, not because it was easy, but because it wasn't. Because every experience, every failure, every moment that nearly broke me has shaped what I'm building today. So if any part of this resonates with you, here's where to start. If you're a soldier, if you've recently left, or if you're supporting someone who is still serving, I've built a podcast series for you. It's about what happens when the uniform comes off and how you rebuild who you are after that. Because this isn't just about transition, it's about identity. So go and start the series now, https://youtube.b/x3mbk v2dh5o?si=DOK4UU0A_ES5OQZK, and begin rebuilding properly.